Hey guys, my name is Ty. I'm the lead tech here at Force Turbos. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to install our turbo system on our 2020 SkiDoo 850 Expert. So, that's what it looks like here. And be short and sweet, let's just hop right into it. So before we start, you want to make sure your park brake is set, vehicle's off, and the key is undone. So after that, we're just going to take off our side panels as well as our hood and our clutch cover, our exhaust can, and we'll just kind of do a little run through of that real quick and show you guys how to do it. Alright, so side panels off, clutch cover off. We're going to go ahead and remove the hood, and to do that we're also going to have to remove this little bolt here, or just loosen up anyways. It's a clamp here connecting the airbox here to the hood, so we're going to remove that. And then we're also going to take out this T25 bolt, and then there's a T25 bolt here and here on each side. And remove that, and then two other T25 bolts under that we'll show you as we progress. So here's those two other T25 bolts I was telling you about. Just this one here and this one here. And then you're just going to want to unplug your lights as well as your sensor up here. It's just an 8mm you're going to take out, bring it up. And then the hood should slide forward, but it will be caught here and there on different things like down here, so just make sure you're not ripping anything out. Two T25 bolts off. You're going to move your harness up and out of the way. And as you can see, we've kind of already gone ahead and removed this grommet from this airbox down here. Then your hood, you just slide right off. So next thing, we're going to go ahead and remove this shielding here as well as this can. And then we will start to remove your belt as well as your secondary. Start getting everything out of there. So we'll move this out of the way first and then hop to that. Alright guys, so like I said, we're going to remove this little shielding here. Just these two come off and then this splits. You're not going to need these, so just keep this somewhere where you want to put all your other parts. And then we're going to take off, forget it. And then we're just going to take off our exhaust here, exhaust springs, like so. And then there is a 10mm bolt holding this can in down here. If you can get a look at that. Yep, that one right there, it's got a spring on it. So we're just using, like I said, a 10mm and a extension to get to that. Almost lost that. Whew. That comes up, just like so. You're not going to need that anymore. And then when you're bringing this out, you want to be careful because you still have your pipe sensor attached down here on this side. So you can either just take it out of the can itself right here, or disconnect it, and then take it out. You will be using this though, so go ahead and take that out, and then we'll remove the exhaust. Okay guys, so with your exhaust removed, we're going to remove our secondary and clutch first, but to do that, we're going to remove this, and then there's going to be a 15mm bolt under there. Don't loosen that just yet. We're going to slide the sled around, we're going to remove the belt, and then we'll do that. So we'll show you how to, you can usually just get like a screwdriver in here, pry this up, you'll see the 15mm bolt. We're going to slide this around, loosen up our belt, take it off, and then we'll come back over to here, loosen that 15mm, and then we'll show you how to do it from there. Okay guys, so to remove your belt, you're going to use your tool that's provided just here on your clutch cover. You're going to use the threaded end and just thread it right into your secondary. So loosen up your belt, you can take it off, and then from there we're going to flip it back around to the other side and show you how to remove your secondary, as well as your jag shaft is going to come with it. So just like so. Try not to damage your belt in any way. Put that off, you're going to release the tension here, and then from there you can either remove that 15mm bolt first, or I would recommend this one since it's already on this side. This is a 13mm in here. I don't know if you can see it. You want to come ahead and take a look at this. inside of here, there's this little plate holding a jag shaft in, as well as this 13mm bolt right here. So we're going to remove that first and move over to the 15mm bolts on the other side. Okay guys, so this is that little bracket I was telling you about on the other side. So after you remove that, this is that 13mm. Just keep these two together. And now, if you've ever removed any SkiDoo secondary clutching, you're going to know that you're going to need this tool. This is just your secondary jag shaft remover, I suppose. And you're just going to take this 15mm bolt off. Careful, there's going to be washers, there's going to be a spacer and whatnot behind it. And we're just going to take that off, bring it out. Try not to drop this in there, otherwise you're taking this whole thing apart and filling it back up with fluid and whatnot, and that's not fun. So 15mm, just take this off. This is why you have the parking brake set, so that you can actually loosen this up without moving the track. So I forgot to mention, while you're at it, you're going to want to remove, if you can see on this side, kind of just loosen this end up a little bit. It's going to be with that same tool. It's whatever that Torx bit is, and then you just remove this, loosen that up, and that loosens up the chain in here. Remember how many turns you've unturned it, because you're going to need to tighten it back up to that same specification. So after you've tightened that up, or loosened it rather, sorry, you're going to remove this bolt, put your secondary in, knock it out, and the whole jag shaft is going to come in there. You're going to undo this and leave it stuck in here, because it's going to keep the tension that's inside of there. Remove the jag shaft, and I'll show you how to do it. Explanation's a little weird, but if that made any sense, we'll show you how it's done. So, okay, so bolts out, kind of just clear that out if you can. Just gonna screw this inside, make sure it's tight, and then give it a old whack, slide that out. Now from the other side, you're gonna kind of just grab on the jag shaft and just loosen it up. And slide her out. Simple enough. So now with that off, we're going to flip this around, show you guys how to remove all the other stuff that needs just removing. Alright guys, so next we're going to remove our panel here, as well as our seat and kind of these frames here. So what you're going to want to do first is remove your gas cap, and then we're going to use this tool here to remove our gas tank holders. Kind of, I don't know what to call this little piece here, but it's just something that keeps your gas cap or your console on there onto the gas tank. So we've used this tool. I'm not sure what they call this either, to be honest with you, but I've seen people use screwdrivers as well. I don't really recommend that, but if you can get this or have it made, or if you have one already, even better. It's easier, doesn't ruin your gas cap or your gas tank holder. Keep forgetting what to call that thing. And then your seat, it's pretty easy. If you can get your hands under there, it's just a little lever, and then slide back. So it's just this, you push up on, slide it back. Now, you're also going to want to remove this console here. So it's 8mm on either side. We've already removed the other one prior. So you're going to remove that. These are going to come up on either side like this and slide it back. But before you do that, you're going to want to remove any connections. So that being the key, the hand warmers, the seat, and your seat warmer as well. Not seat warmer, sorry. Your light switch, apologize. You're going to remove those, and then these connections here that are inside this console, all of those, so that you're not ripping your wires out as you're bringing this off. This one, while you have this out, you kind of get your fingers under there. The connection for the key. If you can't, obviously people use a screwdriver for that one, just to be a little safer, as well as on the other side, you can't see it right now, but there is a brake line that is, you have to flip out and under like that, and then you can get to this. I can't get my fingers in there for some reason, so we're just going to use a screwdriver, pry this up, and then slide it back, just like so. So with that off, we're going to put our gas cap back on, so we're not bringing any fumes into the shop. Now, like I said, we need to remove this frame. So that's going to be these. Let's move this out of the way. That is going to be these two 10mm up here, this other 8mm here, and these two T30s, I believe. I'll give you a second check on that when we're actually removing those bolts. but it's the same corresponding bolts on the other side. Note, when you're removing these ones, this has a little spacer inside of here. So you're gonna remove this nut, make sure the bolt stays with it, or remove the nut and then make sure the spacer kind of stays with it. So have your hand in there, that you're not dropping these. That is not something you wanna lose. So take that off. And then you can also, once these ones are off, you're gonna slide your post forward. And from there we will move on to removing the airbox. Loosen up on either side. So keep the nut just off this side. And then once this one's removed as well, it should give it a little more room to come out. Loosen it up a little. I tend to use a socket on the side with a nut so it keeps it there. And with these, you need to push them out, just like I'm doing. See, as I'm holding this little spacer inside of here. So just keep these together. We will be reusing those, obviously. So take those out, and then we'll move on to the bottom Torx bolts. So it's a T40. We're just using our drill. You could use another 3/8 drive or whatever it is that you may have that T40 socket or bit on. Now with the other side, when you're removing it, see this one comes off. You're just gonna pull the ECU off of it like so, and then the whole thing will just come out. The other side is gonna have this brake line riveted to it. So you can either take that rivet off or just peel it off back to the side, whatever you feel like doing, because you're gonna have to either re-rivet it or not, depending on what you choose to do. Whoopsie. So it's got this fuse little bracket that you're gonna wanna keep off of there. Peel that back from the back side, just lift this up, and then that one comes off. So like I said, same thing with the other one. And then from there, after that, we're gonna remove our gas tank bolt, hold down bolts, and then slide it back. Don't slide it back too far. There are obviously connections on it that you don't wanna have fuel spilling everywhere. So we're gonna do that, and then we will show you how to remove the airbox. Cool. All right, so there's certain little zip ties you got to disconnect for your breather lines. And then this is what I was talking about, as it's riveted on there. You can either wrap something around this so it's not dinging and hitting stuff and whatnot. Just keep it out of the way. We're probably gonna drill it out just so we can show you guys everything a little better. And then from there, whoopsie, like I said, 10 millimeters, those are gonna come off. Bring the spacer, the washer, and the bolt with you, and just slide that back. Sometimes it helps a little easier if you have it decompressed, if you have the lid off. Puts less pressure on that. Yeah, I'm gonna do that real quick. Slide this off, just like so. Same with the other side. It's off. We're gonna have a little room to slide this back. You can also disconnect this. Also be very careful when doing so, because that is a plastic connection that you don't want to break off. So, okay guys, so as you can see, we got a little more room on the tank. Again, these are the hoses and wires I was talking about. I'm gonna be careful with removing, or not removing, just sliding the tank back. So to remove the airbox, you're gonna need to remove these clamps here. I'm just using a long flathead. You could use a Phillips, any kind of socket that may fit that. I believe that is a 8, maybe 7, can't really tell. We're just using this flathead. You got this one, and then the same on the other throttle body. So once that's done, you can pry it back, as well as pry these little hold downs. I don't even know what you'd call these, to be honest. These little hold downs here, they're just pop ins. Once you get those off, you're gonna kind of slide it back and then pop it off, and that will remove your airbox. And we'll go ahead and move on to your throttle bodies, and while we're in there, we're gonna check our reads too. All right, so you can see the airbox is connected with this this whole little pole here, or brace. It's just 10 millimeters that we're gonna use to remove. I'm gonna be careful with both of these, try not to drop them. kind of a pain to get out. If so, there's the one on the bottom as well as the one on the top. Now once you get your airbox out, you're just going to remove this, slide it back out of this rubber grommet, and then from there you can install it. But I mean, not right now. You can leave it out for now so that you can get easier access to all of your throttle bodies and everything. So we're going to take that out, take the airbox out, and then go from there. So guys, if you can see, I don't know if you see this or not, on this side it's got some wires connected to it, as well as this is going to have to come out from this little channel that it's in. For this, your fuel line comes out, as well as you're going to disconnect this, not disconnect, sorry, you're going to cut with some dikes that little zip tie, holding it down just like so. That puts that wire in place as well. Make sure this other fuel line is up and out of the bottom part of that channel as well. Anything that is connected to this airbox is coming off, because we are not keeping that anymore. Get your throttle cable up and out of there, and just like that, it's out. So put that off to the side, and then now is where the fun parts begin. So we're going to move our throttle bodies, and we're going to disconnect all of this. We'll show you what needs to be done first. Alright, so we're going to remove our throttle cable first, after we got all that off. If I can get my hands in there. Alright, there it is. So they're just two 10mm, one for the top and one for the bottom. You're going to loosen up that nut, bring the throttle cable up and off and whatnot, and then we're going to remove the throttle bodies themselves, but which are these. You can either use a flathead, a Phillips, any of that to remove them from your intake boots. So there's the throttle cable. And with that off, we're going to remove these as well as your TPS cable, or TPS sensor rather. Just on this other side, try to reach your hand down in there. Be very careful with this. If you knock that out of position, you're going to be in a world of hurt as far as going to the dealership goes and getting that fixed. So just be careful when you're removing that you're not knocking where it's sitting out of its position. So a way that you could do it is either slide these back slightly and then get it out, or you could try to just reach around and just get that little clip out of there, bring that out, let it kind of sit down in there, and then remove your throttle bodies. Whatever makes it easier and is safer for you. You want to feel around, and you want to just make sure pressing in the button and then sliding that TPS cable off. Throttle cable out. Alright guys, so after you've gone ahead and removed your TPS wire, which is this one, you can see here, this is kind of what the plug looks like, so you know if you're trying to fight, kind of fighting it on the other side over there. It's just this here, this will be wrapped up, so you're going to have to remove that with just a razor blade. It'll be wrapped over it like so. Careful when you're doing that so you're not cutting any wires. So after that's removed, you still have your coolant lines that are connected as well as your fuel line to the top. So we're going to remove those, both of them. Let's do our fuel lines first, I suppose. So back here at the gas tank, you can see we've already disconnected this wire, this little plug here, and then we're going to remove, I don't know if you can see down in there, these two lines. The black one is the higher up one, and the blue one is the lower one. So we're going to remove both of them just from the gas tank, get the gas tank off. But from both of those, we're going to remove this blue line. So this 8mm bolt on this side, and you're going to follow this all the way up back to the ECU. It looks like it's a worm gear clamp up here. On the older 850s, it's just a connection, kind of like how this looks up here. So if you're depending on what model and year you're doing this on, you could just disconnect that from there, and then as well as this fuel line splitting off of this Y fitting to the fuel line on the throttle body. It's an 8mm on this side. You can't really see it. We'll show you when we get it out, but it's an 8mm, and then it just slides off just like how these ones do. So we're going to prep some rags, put them in place, and then we're going to go ahead and remove those. There will be fuel leaking out, so just try to be mindful of that. to do not lose these bolts and remember what they look like, so that when you're putting them back in, you'll remember that it's the same as, whoopsie, just like that. Got it. Okay. So once you get those out, that's just the same one on that side. With that bolt out though, you can just simply remove the line. You can see there's gonna be fuel coming out of either side. So just be careful with that. The more you hold one up, the other one will get air and push out some gasoline. So from there, we are just gonna remove the tank. It's like so. You kind of just set that up against something for now. And as you can see, you got all the room in the world now. So, with all that up and off, we will take off this other blue line, this one here, with the fuel filter on it, and show you guys what to do from there. You can see it leaks a lot, so just make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. These rags are pretty much soaked with gas. But to get to this other line, we're gonna remove our pull cable, and it's just inside of here. It's a T25. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we'll bring it out and we'll show it to you. It's just one. Careful not to lose this one either. Looks pretty much just like all your other bolts. And the whole thing you can kind of just lift up and off. Don't pull it too hard because you're not trying to put any compression into the motor. So kind of just pull it slightly, and then we're just gonna move this pin out of the way. I usually tend to just tie it to this bottom cable down here, just like so. Just wrap it around, and that gives you a little more access back over to this bolt here. All right, so it's just another 8mm, just like on that other side. We're using a wobble socket extension, or wobble extension rather, to get to that. And like I said, it's gonna be leaking. Just slide it off. We got a rag kind of already under there. Try not to get it into your TPS sensor. Move that up and out of the way. So then that's that. So now we just have our, on our other side. We'll flip it around and show you guys for a better view of this worm gear clamped up to your ECU. And then that's coming off. Then you'll have your fuel line off that we can go ahead and put our upgrade on. Alright guys, so if you're watching this part, you have purchased our HO kit. Now, if we look at the box, this is what it kind of looks like. You got your wires, barrow meaning that it's just open to atmosphere and boost. I'll get to what this one connects to in just a minute. This is just your resistor pack. We're gonna include we have included in the kit some Velcro. We're just gonna stick it on just like that. And then as well as Velcro on the back. And we're gonna stick it up to our ECU up here. It's gonna be sitting like so. As far as our wire harness goes, this is what it looks like for that one. Now I'll go in depth and show which connects to which. This obviously connects it to your fuel box. Our next lines, let's go through this. These ones here, these yellow and gray, these do not connect to anything. Well, they do if you want to run accessories, but we don't use them, so we're not even going to bring that up. This wire here, this is our this yellow and black on our HO box. This one will connect to your coil pack. So if you want to take a look over here, we're going to unplug this. So you can kind of get in there and kind of see. Put a light on it for you guys. So this yellow one is going to be routed up and through here. The wire is going to come up and around and whatnot, and everything will be routed how you need it to be, and it's going to connect. So you can see this is where I'm plugged this from. So that is going to connect to our orange and blue, orange with a blue stripe. So you want to look around. It is this one right here. I don't know if you can see that. It's right next to this red and white. That may be too close. It's this orange and blue right down in there. So it's on the top of this. It's the middle one, orange and blue. So that is where the yellow and black connects to orange and blue. Okay, so that covers that one. Let's go back over here. So we covered this one, we covered this one. Now these ones. So we're gonna peel this green one back away for a minute. This hooks to your diagnostic port. This is what gives your fuel box power. You have your red and black for power and ground. That's what that connector looks like. And that plugs in right here. You can see, pop this off, connect it, get your power from there. Simple enough. And now going to this green one. This is gonna hook into your TPS. Now, I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm gonna go over here in your TPS line. That's what this one looks like, connecting to your throttle body. We're gonna be hooking into our brown and white. I don't know if you can see this one. You have a black one, you have a pink, and I believe pink and brown. But what we're hooking to, this one right here, that end one to the very left, if you're holding it like this, it's your white with a brown stripe. So you're gonna solder in, or we're gonna have a little connector that you can connect into that with. And then the rest of these, look here, sorry, I'm gonna peel these two back. So these plug into your stock injectors, your boost injectors. They plug inline. So if you want to take a look at this, it would just go, you'd unplug here, insert on one end, insert on the other. And here, insert on one end and the other, just like that. And these are going to plug into your secondary billet injectors, the ones that come in your kit, the ones that are going to be connected right in the back over there. So that will be just connected right into the other ones. And that pretty much covers your kit. That covers the wiring harness. We'll go a little more in depth when we're showing you how to do it. But that is pretty much it. If you have any questions with that, always make sure that you want to reach out to us. We can, if you want to contact us, just give us a call if we have any questions about it. But I tried to get as in-depth as I could with that and show you which wire it needs to connect to exactly. So when I was talking about this one, the boost, this one is going to connect into your PTO side, your mag side of your throttle body, your secondary injectors. There's going to be a clippered fitting on that. It looks just like this on the other end. Looks just like that. It's going to be sticking out right here. That is what is going to be connected into this one. You're going to have a clippered line running to this fitting. And then on the other side of the PTO, there's going to be another clippered fitting. Your BOV or your blow-off valve will hook into that. So that is our HO box, and we'll go ahead and continue on from there and hook everything up. Like I was saying, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our shorter end here and connect it to the fuel filter and clamp it down, just like so. And then it's going to be sitting, remember you want to kind of have it, so it'll be sitting something like that. So just kind of put her in there and then clamp her down, and then just so you can have this in the right orientation. So this side is going to be, we're going to take this back over here, follow back over here, and we are going to plug this side. I don't know if you guys can see this. Get that out of the way. We're going to plug our Y, again, being careful. It's going to be sitting like that. So this will be under through there. This will be up, plugged into that. And this is going to come and arch back over like so. All right, so we're going to clamp these down, and then we are going to move on to our throttle bodies, getting the coolant lines off. Okay guys, we got our line installed as you can see, so now we're moving on to the throttle bodies. Now we've already gone ahead and put clamps, little cutoff lines kind of for our coolant, so that we're not leaking any any coolant out of these lines here. And we're just going to take them out just like so. So when you're doing it, be careful. You're just going to be coolant, so just have a rag placed under there. And then we're going to take off our fuel injectors as well. You're just going to slide this back, push this pin in. If I can get my hand in there, sorry. Like so. Just like that. So now that we have the whole throttle body off. So for our kit, we need to do a little bit of Dremel work. So if you can see right in here, these bolts, there's going to be bolts that are placed in these 4 holes, and these 2 in the back, being these 2, the bolts are going to rub up against that. So as you can see, there, well, possibly, there is a slight little mark indentation where we've had the bolts before. So we're just going to take a Dremel, kind of go over that slightly. You don't even have to do too much, but just so that the bolts will go down into the secondary billet injectors better. So I'm going to take a Dremel to those and show you guys the after of what that looks like. So got the before, we'll show you after. Alright guys, so as you can see, we went ahead and took our Dremel and just made the slightest little notch. Just right here on this side and here on the other. Just enough for the screw to fit in, and then we've gone ahead and sprayed it with some our air compressor. Get all any dust shavings, any of that may be in there. And then now we are going to take our billet injector intakes here. So I'm going to sit just like this. This is what I was talking about with those 4 bolts. They're going to go and slide in just like that. See how this one has enough room to wiggle around in there now due to that. So what you're going to want to do is just press it on. I suggest that you use a little bit of silicone in there just for a better seal, or if you want to use, if you don't want to have to clean that off after, it's recommended just for a better seal, less leaks if any, and or you could just use some grease or whatever it is that you want to press it on, and then you will bolt it down with these bolts, and then we'll just show you a little process of how we go about doing that. So alright, so with that, like I said, we put a little bit of silicone in there. Now we're just going to go ahead and press these on just like so. So you can see that they're not on completely right now, so we are going to just get them in as far as you can, and then you're going to press the rest of the way down with these 1/8 inch bolts. I believe it's an 1/8 inch. Sorry, I'm going to look real quick. 7/64, I apologize. So it's 7/64 for the bolt, the Allen bolt anyways, and I'm just going to tighten all those down until it stops. It will stop at one point or another. You just keep tightening until it is good, and then we can go ahead and we can reinstall these, and this is where you're going to be installing that other longer piece of the fuel line that's going to come up and off over here. Tighten that down, and then I'll show you what to do with the coolant lines before that. Alright guys, so since we got everything off now, we are, while you're at it, if you've gotten down to this far, you might as well check your reeds while you're at it. Make sure there's no chips in any of the in any of your reeds, and make sure that they're all intact. And while you're at it, if you want to, you can check out our website at www.forceturbos.com, and we sell reeds actually specific for our turbo systems that go great with this. So if you haven't already purchased those, you can go ahead and check that out. And but if not, then we have, and if you just check out, then we're good to go. And we're gonna go ahead and install our coolant before we install our throttle body that we've put together. So as far as coolant lines go, fairly easy. You have this line here, and you have 3 worm gear clamps. So what you want to do, since ours are already blocked off, you're just going to plug this straight in. Well, I guess we should have a clamp on there first, right? And then plug her in just to this middle one here, leading from the mag cylinder. And then you were just going to route this down through here and up along, following this other coolant line. So this is what I like to do. This one is going to be used on one side of the turbo anyway. So, well, we're going to need to clip that real quick. Sorry, give me a second. Make my way back over here. Okay. So after we cut this zip tie holding, you guys can see this. There's a zip tie holding on to this coolant line. This is the one straight from your bottle. So that one we're just going to push straight through over to this side. And that is going to go directly to the turbo when we install it. So we're just going to hold it down there. And then this one we're going to route down and around, and it's going to take that place of that other zip tie, coolant line that was already in place here. So Nick, if you want to come around over here, kind of check it out. This one there, that's the one. Yep, so your coolant line is going to come down and around, just hook up right into there, and then follow your other one from your coolant bottle. So those are both going to hook up over to your turbo, and that's what these ones are for. So this will go onto either side of your banjo fitting for both sides. So we're going to get to those later. Put those in a safe spot. But just you want to make sure that that's not going to get in the way of anything, hit up against your jag shaft. And that's why we put it back in the same spot as that other one. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and install our throttle bodies. Okay, so we're going to install our clamps. If you've taken them off, put them the exact same way that they had when we took them off, and just press her on. Boom. Make sure that it's flat, completely flat up against that before you clamp your clamps down. And just going to tighten them back up. These are just the stock clamps that we're using from these rubber boots to your throttle bodies. So those are going to get put back on. We're going to install our coolant line to, keep saying coolant, sorry guys, our fuel line back to our regular stock injectors, like that. 8mm bolt going on that side. And then this one here is what our fueling upgrade consists of. And that one is just going to go just like that. So that gets on. Tighten her down, 8mm bolt back into that, and all of this is going to go back on to your stock stuff here. So there, zip tie this line up. You can put your throttle cable back on, just like that. So we're going to wrap everything up right here, and then we'll show you guys a final view of what it's supposed to be looking like. You got your throttle cable fully back inside of there, tightened up, and as well as our TPS down here. So everything's good in there. Make sure that you haven't, again, be careful with that so you're not knocking around. And then our boost reference line, you can see down in there, right here, just connected to that mag side. All right, guys, so as you can see, this is how we've kind of ran ours. I'll kind of just show you guys exactly where we've put a lot of our stuff. So our box is up here, ran our wires down over here, as well as our boost line, our reference. Kind of just wrap these ones back over here together, because this one we're not using these, all those accessory wires. Here's that other one, the boost reference. And then these lines down here, we've kind of just circled back through, back around the other way. This one's connecting to your diagnostic port. This one is our just accessory. We haven't brought this one up just yet because we need to run our other lines, but it's going to be sitting something like this. The other one's tied into it. Now if we want to take a look at from the other side how we've ran everything else, we circled it back around. If you can see from down over here, we got our lines just kind of just sitting around. It's following this other, if that pillar was here, it's just following this pillar and then coming back around. These ones are our secondaries. This line here, we're just going to zip tie that to that. Our injector pulse width pickup is running along here, and we've just ran it. If you look right through these little connection cables, there's actually a hole, and I just follow that line usually. Go right through there, and then just right over here. We want to come back on this side. So we just ran straight through there all the way over to this line, and this is that positive tap I was telling you about. So you just, way simple to install. You just take the bottom half out, this gray piece, and then you're gonna insert it around, if you can see, it's just through the wire, and then you just screw that right back on, and then it has a little pointed piece in there that picks up off of that. And then this one is just the opposite. You just go through this like so, have this side kind of frayed out, not necessarily frayed, but just stripped out, and then it just screws right into there. So if you ever need to do any work with that, take it off, really simple, and it just sits like that, and then you're just going to clip it back in. Like that. Make sure you hear the click. Okay guys, now we got our throttle bodies on. We're going to go ahead and put on our airbox. Now, you can see I already have the line cut. This one is going to our fuel controller, and then this one will be going to our gauges. If you didn't have gauges, you're not going to have two of these in your airbox, but if you do, then you will. So, easiest way to do these, if you have a 2019 or lower, if it's not a 2020 expert, you're going to have to put this, or we've already put this notch here in this clamp, and that is going to have to sit in there like so. So if it's sitting on the machine, it'll be this side. It's going to be right in the middle, right there. Now that we do that because, as you can see, I'll use the screwdriver as a pointer. That clamp would have been hitting up against this little arm right here. So we've notched it, and it's always good to kind of just, if you have, when it's in there, you can kind of just put a screwdriver in there and kind of just bend this arm slightly, just a hair. You don't want to do it too much, just so that you still have free motion in that that throttle cable. It's not getting stuck, because if it were to get stuck, then that'd get stuck wide open and it'd just send the sled, so that's not good. So once we get everything on, I'll show you exactly how it needs to be sitting and have everything set up and show you a little more in depth of how we do it. Okay guys, so to get to this last clamp, we're gonna have to take off our pull handle. It's just this holder here. All you gotta do is to get this T25 bolt out, like that. Again, that's just a T25. Torx. There we go. Got the bolt, and this should just come right out. Now you just wanna slowly give it just a little pull. I tend to just wrap it around this, maybe one more. There we go. Wrap it around here, just keep it in place. So now we have access with a, again, back to that 8mm or screwdriver, whatever you want to use, to get down into, you want to get down here, Nick, and show them. So it's this clamp right there up in the front. Whoopsie. This clamp up here. You're just going to want to tighten that up and make sure that that notch that we have cut into that clamp is right in the way, so that when you are flicking it, it's not hitting up against it. So let me get an extension and we'll show you, tighten her up and then show you guys. Okay. All right, so our clamp is in place, fully secure. You want to test it a couple times. If you want to come take a look over here, Nick, I'm just going to climb on top of the sled. So right in here, we can see that the arm, it's got full motion, okay? See that it's not touching any of that. Now we just want to get a screwdriver, kind of put it in between there and just bend that arm out ever so slightly, just so we can have full confidence that that's not going to stick. All right guys, so for our next part, we're going to be putting on our oil line from our turbo. So to do that, we need to get down to this oil line here. I don't know if you can see that, but that is the oil line on your mag side of your cylinders. So to do that, we're gonna have to free that up. So we're gonna have to remove this zip tie here. I'm trying to move this post up and out of the way a little bit. Zip tie here. We're gonna try to just get everything up and out of the way, as well as this zip tie down over here. And sorry, let me try to move my hand. There you go. So you're just gonna have to try to follow this line and try to bring it up and out so that we have access to it until it's about up here. So cut anything up and out of the way, but be careful not to cut any actual lines that you're gonna need. And then we'll show you how to tie into that line to the so that your turbo can have oil supply. All right guys, so we just got those 3 zip ties, the one holding this together, the one here, and then the one on the other side over here. Brought this line up, and then we brought the oil line up through and out like this, just so that we have access to it. I don't know if you can see that. So we have access to it, and we're gonna tie into it right here. So we're gonna put a check valve here, we're going to cut here, insert a T at this point, and then branch off of that T off to the turbo line. That's going to lead out over here to be where your turbo is going to be sitting here, and insert a check valve in that line as well. The check valves are so that the oil stays in that line and it's not going to be moving through, and it's not going to sink back down in and whatnot. So once we cut into that, make sure that you have the right amount of rags or whatever so that you can keep a lot of the oil from getting in there and getting messy. So we're going to go ahead and insert one of those now. So on these check valves, you can see that it's got an arrow. I don't know if you possibly. So on that, you want to make sure that that's the way that the oil's flowing. So that our arrow is pointing this way. So we're going to insert it so that the oil will flow and through that line how it's supposed to. So it's coming from your, oh sorry, I was pointing this way, I meant this way. So it's coming from your tank, and it's going to be going the opposite way. So it's going to be pointing in this way. We're going to have that one in line about here in the line, and then we're going to make an insertion right here and put our T in, and we'll show you guys what I mean by that here in a minute. Okay guys, you can see this is what I was talking about. So this was the original line here, this blue one. Now we just inserted a check valve fairly close to where it enters into the mag cylinder, and we've also put this brass T in here, zip tied all the lines, and then this is the other line that we have also inserted a check valve fairly close to the end. We're going to zip tie these two fittings here, and then we've pre-filled it as well, and it's keeping oil in it because of the check valve. So it's got oil in it already. We're just going to insert here like so, and then run this down and through and along just over to where your turbo is going to be sitting. And after we get that done, all of these connections are good. Oh sorry, forgot to mention, this is how we filled the line, just a syringe with a little fitting on it, anything like that, and then you can obviously just fill up your line. Make sure that when you're putting oil in your line, you're putting it from this end, because the check valve is only going to allow oil to flow through this way towards there. So again, coming back to the arrow on the check valve, you want to make sure that it's pointing towards your stainless steel line, because that is the one that's going to your turbo. So again, this check valve is pointing to the motor, to where it's entering, and this one is pointing to your turbo, where it's going to. Okay, so now we're going to be installing our base plate here. This is just for your turbo to sit on and to mount up. So fairly simple. If you just look at the design, it matches exactly how your inside of your plastic is. So we're just you're gonna tuck it under this little metal piece down over here, like so. Make sure everything's flush, squared, and then now this is where we are going to start drilling that out, so we can rivet it in place. So we just have a 3/16 drill bit, and we're just going to go along and drill all those holes out, rivet it down, and then we can mount up our turbo right after that. So we're all going to do this real quick, and we will show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay guys, so we got the base plate riveted in place, or not riveted, sorry, drilled out. We're going to blow it out, and then we're going to rivet it in place. Keep any debris or metal shavings or plastic shavings that might have been in there, get them out. And then you can use a hand rivet gun, but we're going to use a pneumatic one to make things quicker. And you're just going to go in from the bottom and just rivet it in place. Like that. So go along on the outer edges and get all those, and then we'll show you what it looks like after. Okay guys, turbo time with Ty, that's what we're calling it. Sorry, stupid. So you can see, you can just place it right in the hole and then right up to your pipe. So you just want to make sure that your clearances are okay. Your wastegate actuator isn't going to hit your chain chain case. That's what I'm looking for. Chain case. This isn't going to rub up against your side panel, your compressor housing, and we're just going to keep everything up and out of the way for a minute. But down on this side, if you want to come take a look, as you can see, the two hole mounting holes for where your bolts are going to be to hold your turbo in place. Like I said, get everything in place, make sure it's not hitting anything, and then you're going to scratch or mark in some way with a Sharpie, any of that, just where these two holes are going to be. Drill those holes out, mount the turbo, and then we're going to mount it up with the springs and everything, get her in place. I mean, you can use any kind of scribe or you can use a Sharpie, any of that. I've just used one of the ends of the rivets that we used, and I've made these two marks here and here. Now I'm just going to drill those out, and I'm going to make sure that everything lines up with the turbo, and we'll go ahead and mount it up after that. As you can see, we've drilled out our holes, everything mocked up. Those two are in place, so then we're just going to take the turbo, place inside, and make sure everything's mocked up right. Make sure you drilled your holes out how they're supposed to be, and then you can, you know, before we actually mount it up though, we want to make sure that we get our coolant lines on first. So you can kind of just tilt it to the side. Now the one leading from your stock coolant bottle is going to go on the inside of your turbo, closest to the motor, and then this one that you've added, it will go onto the outside. So you're just going to use those clamps that we've supplied you with. They're stainless steel worm gear clamps. Install those, bring your oil line down through, and it's going to sit in there like that. Zip tie everything up out of the way over there, and then we are going to go ahead. You can mount this up, just stock springs that you've put on there, and then those two mounting bolts. So we're going to do the coolant lines real quick and the oil line, and mount everything up and show you the finished product of it. Okay guys, if you want to come take a look at this, you can see everything's mounted solid. We've got our springs on either side. This is how we've routed our oil line. Just routed down, and it's we've zip tied it to this coolant line here and just down along here to keep it out of the way. If you want to see that it's not touching any of the pipes, because that would obviously be bad, you don't want it melting. It is stainless steel, but it will heat up and it could melt. So we got our coolant lines in place. They're also zip tied up and out of the way on this side. I'm not sure if you can really see this, but they're zip tied together so that they're not touching the turbine housing. And then our exhaust pipe, down pipe, whatever you want to call it, is firmly mounted with these two bolts down there. So with that being said, I want to kind of take a little walk around of this so we can show you how everything's routed up until this point. If you want to come take a look, you can see all of our box. Everything's routed up along this way. It's going to be zip tied here. We got our power. We've kind of just shortened it a little bit just so we can make it easier on us. Power is going to be connecting your diagnostic port, and then that yellow and black wire is going to our blue, or our orange with a blue trace, and then our other wires connected, our green wire down here is connected to our white and brown on our TPS. Everything's all connected. We can get this up in there, out of the way. We can run our pipe, or our piping for our charge tube from the turbo all the way back around to the airbox, and we can run our cold air from the inlet all the way up until it curves up and around and it goes like right here. So we're going to do that, and then we will go on to, you can slap everything else back together as far as your gas tank, your there's another pillar mount here, and kind of zip tie all your connections and lines and everything up out of the way, and then we'll move on to disassembling the hood and get everything squared away that way. So we'll do another little rundown kind of like this in just a minute and show you what everything looks like. Okay guys, so we've put back our pull handle, and we've also installed our console cover here. So make sure when you're doing this that you plug the key back in. We'll plug right under, obviously, your key. It's gonna be sitting right here. If this is routed properly, they have these two, your wiring harness here has this clip here and this clip here, so that it clips back into place and then routes right back under here, clips back into place. And then you've got your accessory port on this side, this little one, and then you've got your headlights and heaters. So make sure that those go to the right spot and they're zip tied up and out of the way. And then you can also, once that's back on, your ECU actually goes under that, I'm sorry. So it's under this 8mm bolt, ECU on, and then you can slide these over the top on either side, 8mm on either side, and then you just use, put your seat back on. And now we can start routing your charge tubes and your cold air intake. So we're gonna do that real quick, and then after that we'll move on to disassembling and reassembling the hood. All right guys, now we're gonna install our charge tube, with an S, plural. Here's the other half. We're gonna install this half first, and then the other half. Now the half with the blow-off valve on it, that is the half that is going onto your airbox. So just sit in there like so. You're gonna want to keep an 8mm handy or a screwdriver, whatever you prefer. We use an 8mm, it tends to work best to loosen these clamps, just so that you can kind of adjust as needed. Any slight turns or increase or decrease in length of silicone. So we're gonna slide this side on. Make sure it's actually all the way on there, like that. Then we're gonna make sure it's turned down a little. It's all the way down, and we can tighten it up. But I'm gonna wait till we get everything set in there in place. So for this, we wanna make sure that we're not touching up against this pillar. So here's the 8mm I was talking about. Just can kind of loosen everything up. And we can go from there. So this side is going on your compressor housing inlet, or outlet rather, I suppose. Loosen that up. Whoa. And then slide that right on. Yeah. Now, like I said, you want to check your clearances so that this is not touching up against this pillar, and that this still has enough room, and also that you're not touching up against your inlet pipe for your turbine housing. So get those set in place, and we can go ahead and tighten everything up on these, and we can install our cold air. Cool. Right, so with our cold air intake, what you want to do is just loosen this clamp, also an 8mm, and we're just going to slide it over the air intake of the turbo. There it is. Just like that. All right, scoot her all the way back, and you can tighten her down. Now this is probably not going to be in the right adjusting. It looks like it's probably going to need to bend down a little more like so. So we'll adjust it, but the only way to make sure that we actually get it in the right place is when we disassemble our hood and we put it back together, and this is going to go into your stock airbox where its stock location is, so that you can still run your same vents. So it's going to be sucking air out of those same vents. So we'll go ahead and do that real quick, and we'll show you how to start disassembling and reassemble. All right, so like I said, we're going to disassemble the hood. So first things first, flip her over. Now, you can see, you got a bunch of these little, I don't even know what they are, to be honest with you. They're like hold down washers type things. They just twist off. And the way to do it, you just grab it. Let me see if I can show you guys a better like this. So you kind of just grab it and then twist it, because it's got those kind of little grooves and it digs into this plastic, so you can't really just lift up on it. You kind of have to spin them off. So I just using a pair of pliers. Almost cut my finger there. A pair of pliers. Just digging them like that, pull them off. Okay, last one out. Now this, you need it. Just keep it in the box with all your other stuff. Just in case you do want to turn back to stock, you want to keep all these parts. So Right, next. This is that bottom part of the airbox I was telling you about. Now there are a lot of screws on this that you are not going to be keeping anymore. So just bear with me here and we'll get through this. Now, we're going to remove this one. Just keep in mind that any of the screws that you're taking off of the airbox, a lot of them aren't going to go back on. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. A lot of them aren't going back on. Okay, so there's those 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there is this one over here. Kind of come and show you guys. There's that one, this one that's going to remove this. Don't need it. And we've got, I'm sure it's backing up. All right, what else do we got? So, got those ones down there. You're kind of just gonna have to look. There's a lot of them that are in weird spots. But next we have these two that are connected to this one and this one on the front. And they're T25s, and the bottom bolt is a 8mm, sorry. So we're just gonna get a ratchet, an 8, and the drill has a T25. Turn and loosen. So you are gonna keep these ones. So keep all the washers with it, keep the bolt and nut, set that off. This side, there's those. Okay, so now we're gonna flip the hood back over. Whew, a lot of stuff. Now with this part, we're gonna remove your air vents. It's a T25 here, here, and here. So that's gonna come off. You're gonna wanna remove this. I don't remember if it's push forward or push back. No, it's push forward, okay. You're gonna wanna remove this. It's gonna reveal another bolt down here that we're gonna have to remove. That is connecting on your airbox. Let's take that off, switch it around. And there's one on either side. You're gonna keep those little vent covers, or not covers, these SkiDoo covers. You're gonna keep those, but the bolt is gonna be, I don't think we're gonna keep that one if I remember right. Remove these vents. There we go. Keep these bolts as well that are connecting to your vents. I'm going to reinstall those once that's freed up. There, there, and here. And the vent should just push right off. Alright, so with those off, slides right off. Gives us better access to that 8mm right under there. Like I said before, not keeping that one. That comes off. Then there are other ones down in here. There's another 8mm on the other side here. There is some down over in here, which is these ones and this one. And then there is some down on this side, which we'll get to in a minute. So take these ones off. Alright, so after that, you can see it's kind of getting a little bendy in different places. That's because we're slowly losing the integrity of it. Or not integrity, of just how it's supposed to be sitting. So, oh, forgot to mention, there's another one here. And then this one here as well. So an 8 and a T25. So let's remove that when you do that. It's going to loosen up that front end. And then that is going to slide off. So once you get this other one off. Dropping bolts. Okay, so once we get that other T25, it should disconnect from the other half of the hood. Take that one, this. And over here, there it goes. Comes out. And watch for that. Then we got this slide off. pin should come off as well. Okay, so this is what we're left with. So now, you guessed the longest assembly. We got these T25s up front. There's another 8mm right here. On the left-hand side, connecting the airbox. That one. Okay. Now, you just want to keep making sure, double check that you've gotten all your bolts. Right there, there, there. Cool. Now, what is it we're left with? Down in there. These 8mm up here. That disconnects that from there. Save that, obviously. Now, these ones should be some of the last ones. This one here. This one here. And then your airbox will just disconnect, like so. This is what we don't need anymore. Everything else has to get put back together. We'll throw her back onto the sled, get everything mocked up right, and so we'll keep shooting little shots here and there. So first things first, we got to get this back together. As you can see, I've installed these two bolts, just an 8mm and an 8mm, same like how they were before. And just keeps those two in there. So now we got to slap the front back on. And there, line it up. Slap her together. Now these and these are both connected on the same bolt. So let me see if I got the right side. No, I didn't. This side. Now this side's gonna slide up under there. Slide in there, like so. And as you can see, this one's gonna line up under it, and then this one is gonna be on top of it. And then they're gonna have an 8mm, one of those black bolts, going through all of them back into all of this. So I'm gonna do that on both sides, and then also there's one in the back, if that helps to keep it in place. So I'm gonna do that on both sides, kind of show you what it looks like after. Okay, all right guys, so those are back together. We're gonna slide these little SkiDoo emblem pieces on. That's backwards. Oops. There. So that's gonna come on there, and there, and they just push forward. If you're looking at it from this way, so backwards, depending on how you're looking at it, that's gonna go on there. In our package, it comes with hood bolts that it's basically just some bolts that are gonna hold these two pieces together, as they are no longer, they don't have anything to hold on to. So it's just bolts going in through here and here at the top. So we'll install those. Before we do that, I'll just save that for last. We're gonna install these. You wanna make sure you're not poking any holes through these, and it slides on easy. And with those, you gotta remember they're the black T25 bolts. There's 3 of them on either one. So now we gotta get those ones for the front half of your hood. And there's ones I told you with the washers. Now, the washers go on the bottom side, not on the ground. They go on the bottom side. So just pull those through. And it pokes right through the top. Bottom of that light fixture, not fixture, what am I trying to say here? Just a little plastic here. All right, and then your bolt. We'll hook up those bolts, and then she'll be good to go. Like I said, here, I'll show you real quick. All the bolts that we're not gonna be using. Like I said, it's a lot, it's a decent amount. So save one of these black ones, these 8mm, for your air sensor, your oxygen sensor. And the rest of the stuff, keep it in a bag and keep it with your other stock parts. And that way, if you ever want to use it again. So we'll slap these bolts back together and show you a quick video of it after it's on. Just like so. So after that, and complete the other side with this other matching bolt. you've completed your hood disassembly and reassembly, and we're good to go slap it back on. Now, what I was talking about with the cold air, this here, this little opening, that is right where it's going to be feeding into. So, I'll show you a better view of it when we're actually putting it on. So, now we're putting the hood on. Now again, you just want to make sure the cords are up and out of the way. Just keep these up here because they're going to sit over this when it's on. And we're going to put in this pipe inside. This is what I was talking about. This is going into the stock air intakes, which are these, your stock air vents. Just slide in like that. Now, with that in, come over to the front side, adjust so that your clamps fit inside of where it needs to go, down here, a little rail, right? Kind of keep it back for a minute, and then going back here, onto the back side, same thing, put them down into where it needs to ride, kind of pull back on it, just sit in place. So, with everything in place, you're going to want to use your stock bolts to keep this hood back on. So, it's going to be a bolt here, and one corresponding on the other side, 2 here, up in the front, and then for the rest of your gauge and your little cubby right here that keep your gloves and whatnot in, there's going to be 2 more sitting right here. So they should all be T25, so we'll get those and we'll show you how they should sit. So the one with the washer always goes down into as I just placed right there on the bottom of the hood. And then see these longer 4. Some of you guys, depending on what model, some of these are shorter than others, but I think as of late they've just been making them all the same length. But the longer ones, you're gonna want to put in here, in there, on the other side. So this last part, guys, we just drilled a hole for our sensor. It's just a 1/2-inch hole sitting right. You want it right where I've got mine. You can kind of just pause the video, take a little reference, see where it's at. So your sensor's just gonna be sitting here. Plug your harness in, light, make sure you don't forget those. And then with that other 8mm I told you to save, make sure you don't drop it inside of there. You're just gonna wanna, there's not gonna be a hole for it, but you can kind of just send it, make a little hole, and then she will stay in place. So we're gonna put the rest of the covers on. This one and this one. Your cubby, whatever you want to call it. That goes inside. And this one, depending on what year you have, it'll either be hooks like this one, or it'll be little pop-in, little push things. So you're gonna want to make sure you don't forget to plug in your gauge. That is very vital. That has a lot of grounding components inside of it that are necessary when you're starting. And then from there, we'll just get our other 2 T25 bolts, clamp these down. Okay guys, if you're watching this, that means you've purchased gauges with your turbo system. So we're going to show you a little bit on how to install and the way that we go about doing it. So that's what your gauge package looks like. You got your boost and your AFR. Now we're just going to go ahead and mount this up. It's just going to go up on your handlebars here. We've seen people put them up front. We've seen people put it in the back. Whatever one works best for you. We tend to put it in the back just because it tucks it in a little bit easier, a little more up against your riser here. So to take those 2 bolts off, they're T40s. You're just going to take those off, put it on, slap the bolts back on, tighten her up. And from there, we'll show you how the wiring goes, and we will show you where how to route your lines. You see, just sitting in the back, everything's sturdy, and we're going to take a look at all the other stuff that comes in your gauge package. So this is your O2 sensor. That's what's going to plug into your inlet pipe from your turbo. And then this is what's powering your AFR gauge. So we're just using the black and the red. Just your power and ground. The rest are accessory wires. We're going to cut them back and kind of just shorten this whole cable itself, just so we can keep it tucked up and out of the way. And then this is what's going to be plugging into your O2 sensor. You see, they just match up like so, and then it's going to plug into the back of your gauge. So We also have our boost line. This is just going to connect from, obviously from your boost gauge to your airbox. There's a little reference point there. So when it comes to powering all of your gauges, we're just going to be tying into the power and ground off of the diagnostic port from your HO harness. Or if you have a G3 or AIC or SIC, it's going to be just your power and ground hooking to your diagnostic port. So this is coming from our harness from our box, and then it's just connecting to the stock SkiDoo diagnostic port. So we're going to bring this back a little bit, trim it, power your power and ground to the power and ground on this. So you're going to trim back, solder, whatever works best for you, and then we'll kind of show you a little step-by-step on how we've done it, and once it's all completed, give you a full rundown of it, so just make it a little easier. So all right guys, so we just finished up the wiring for the gauge brackets. So we want to take a look. We'll kind of just show you how we've routed it. We got our 2 wires coming down from our AFR gauge, and then they're just circled back around. One is connecting obviously to your sensor, and then kind of just tuck that up and away in here. And then the other one we've routed down, and it's this power wire. It's just connected again to this diagnostic port off of your fuel box. So that's also where your power for your boost gauge, it's just powering this light inside of here is all it is. So I've known some people that don't put power to that, or they will, but both the power wire for your AFR gauge and boost gauge are both running to the same wires, both power and ground over here. So then our last hose that's coming off of our gauges is our boost hose. So it's a reference. It's kind of just circles back down and around, and there's another air reference on your airbox. So it's just connected down into there, and that's pretty much it. This is your sensor. Obviously you want to make sure you tighten that up. But yeah, you just solder your power and your ground into the power and ground on your diagnostic port. So fairly simple. You just want to make sure it looks nice, and when you turn your bars all the way full tilt, none of these are getting snagged or caught on anything, or everything's up and out of the way. So, all right, clutching. Okay, so if we've already started this turbo system, or if you've done any kind of work on a SkiDoo, you know that the secondary clutch has to come off anyways. So if you have that off, great, we're good, and we'll start onto the primary. If not, getting it off is fairly simple, but you are required to have specialty tools. One of those being this, well, I can't really take it out, but it's a little punch on the other end that screws into the back of the secondary here. I don't know if you can see this. You want to get it, there it is, that one right there. So you have to twist that in. There's a 15 bolt on the other side. You twist that in, smack it out after you've removed that bolt, and then this other 13 that's sitting in here, keeping the secondary in place. So once those are out, you should have your secondary out. You smack it out, keep that little tool stuck inside of there. It keeps the gear inside and all the washers, so you're not dropping that down in the chain case. So when it comes to the primary, it's pretty simple. Gotta get this off. There's a little pin back here, and this little panel punches out. So you can see, I'll show you right here. So it just sits in there like so. And then you're gonna have to take this bolt off here. This is a 21 millimeter, and it's gotta be a 12 point. So that's this one here, 21, 12 point, slides on there. I'm just gonna use an extension to get in there. You're just gonna twist this bolt off, and then, again, if you've done any clutching, you know that you have to have specialty tools for this whole disassembly. So we're also gonna use this, this here is just a primary clutch holder. It sits inside of that, so. And then, oh, sorry, it'd be going the other way, apologize. But you're gonna be holding on to here, twisting, getting that off. You wanna make sure that you're not letting it rest up against your oil bottle, obviously, your reservoir, because that is not what you want. You're gonna end up breaking that. So we'll get this off, and then we'll show you guys how to go from there. Okay, so we've just gotten this loosened up. Again, just using the 21 millimeter. Just kind of broke this loose. You can just take that right out of there. I've seen people use some kind of hook inside of there as well, or something to brace if you don't have that, but that obviously that being the best tool to use as far as keeping that primary in place. So there's 2 sets of threads getting inside of there. There's a set of threads in the back. Once you've loosened up, then it slides out and then you run into another set of threads. So once this is out, we can thread in our primary clutch puller, which is specific to each vehicle, Can-Am, whether it being BR, well, it's still BRP, but it's whether it being Can-Am or SkiDoo, whatnot. So we're just gonna thread this in. This should also be a 21 millimeter. And then instead of loosening, you're gonna tighten this time. And same tool. We're kind of just gonna rest it up against this. This will act as a brace. And I'm gonna use a cheater bar because half the time these can get pretty tight inside of there. So you're just gonna wait till you hear it pop. Sounds like something's gonna break, like that. It doesn't though, that's just what it does. So I'm gonna take this out, unless you could pull this back if you really wanted to kind of get this out of here without running into this plastic. I like to just unthread it though, bring it out like so. And you're gonna need to separate the two. So you're just gonna put it back in, just a little bit, just on the concrete, wherever on the ground. Kind of just push down on it, and that separates the 2 sheaves from each other. And then you can unthread this, and we'll take it over to the workbench and show you guys how to disassemble it from there. Okay guys, so first things first, we're gonna go ahead and remove and start disassembling our primary clutch. Now I kind of want to show you what clutch looks like. As you can see, this thing's a little glazed over, it's dirty. We can go ahead and clean this up with either some Scotch-Brite. I've seen people use some sandpaper. I personally just use Scotch-Brite just because it doesn't dig too far into your clutches. But first thing you want to do is you want to take this little black cover off. Now this thing isn't under any tension, so you just want to remove these 6T40s. So we're just using a drill for this one. And that should just pop right off like so. Now, with that off, we're gonna need, back like I was saying, how it's required to have special tools. We're gonna put this back onto here, and it's just gonna sit on there like that. And this is a specialty tool. Now, again, all of these you can order from your dealership closest to you, or what am I doing? Or not Polaris, I'm sorry, SkiDoo themselves. What you want to do is thread this first little piece in. This is just your first puller. Once this is threaded all the way in, I'm going to remove this for a second. So this is just going to give you, this is going to hold it in place while you compress the spring inside of there. Let's thread that on. And then thread this all the way down as well. Now see what you want to take a look at. What we're doing is removing this little ring right inside of here. So this decompresses that, and from there we're going to want to grab a screwdriver and we're going to go ahead and remove that. Easiest way, you can kind of just hold one side and the back. Okay, maybe not. Sometimes it takes a couple tries, it's alright. Just like that. I'm just going to want to go all the way around it until it pops off. Keep that right inside of there, and then slowly just relieve the tension. Just like that. So, that is how you remove your primary spring. Now with this clutch option that we're putting on, we're actually not changing out our spring, but we're just changing our arms and the weights inside of our primary. We're going to use the same spring. But if you were to use a different option that we offer, we would change out our primary spring as well. So, like I said, we're not doing that in this one, so we're just going to keep that in there. And then from there, slide this up. And then this whole spider, forget the actual name of it. It's just a little on top that will come off, and then from there it gives us access to our arms. So to remove those, it's a T25 here, and then we're gonna insert our little punch, another specialty tool, inside of there, punch it out, remove the pin, slide this back out, and then remove the arm. So we'll show you one, and then we'll show you, then the rest we'll just skip forward through. So like I said, it's just a T25. You want to be careful with these. They are made of aluminum. You don't want them to strip out any of that. So once that's completely out, you also don't really want to use a drill on this part, or an impact rather, just because it's not good. Too much torque. So once that's in, you want to kind of get as far in as you can go. We're going to get a hammer or a mallet, whatever you prefer, whatever's easiest. And you're going to kind of just tap it out. As you can see, taps that out. Loosen, check that out, and your arm's out. Pretty simple. So we'll do that with the other two, and we'll put in our other arms, and we'll show you the weight that we're going to put in there, and then we will slap everything back together. All right. So you can see, got our weights out, easy enough. So with our new weights, this is what you're going to get inside of your box if you've ordered one of our options, clutching option 2. So this is the weight itself, this being the heel, middle, and toe. So we're going to put 2 of our bigger weights in the toe, 1 in the middle, and then a small one also in the middle. So again, gotta flip that one like that. So again, heel, middle, toe. Toe has 2, middle has 1, and then 1 small one. So 1.5 technically. So then that is how our weight is set up. And you're just gonna do the opposite, putting it in, which is just flip her back around. And then this also has a thread. The opposite side, just gonna thread her in and give it a smack until it bottoms out. You can hear a difference. Like that. So once that's bottomed out, you want to reinsert your screw on the opposite side, that T25, and then we'll just tighten it back up. Do that same thing for all of them, and then we will catch up with you once all that is done and show you how to reassemble all the rest of it. Alright guys, got everything back together. They all move freely, move around, as do the rollers. So when we're putting it back together, this is one thing you want to make sure that you're doing, is when you put it in, you want to make sure that, so I want to show you real quick before I actually do it. There is an arrow here and a circle here. Those have to line up. It's critical due to the balance. That's what that's for. So another thing, when you're putting this in, you can see that not everything is just going to fit in there. So you got to lift the clutch arms up and kind of balance out how it's going down. So let me show you right here. So there's got to be the upper roller, or upper, you know, the bigger roller. That one has got to be in the front, and then this little one has to ride on the back. You can see where the big one rides here, and then the little one, I don't know if you can see, but it's inside here. So again, just watch the arrow, make sure that you are putting it in right, and then watch for all of the rollers to line up how they're supposed to line up. And then the arms have to go up like that. Oh, forgot one. There we go, just like that. And you want to make sure, give them all a little click, make sure they're all how they're supposed to be. And then from there, you can just do reverse operations pretty much. Put that inside. We're gonna put this back on. Press it down. Move that ring around so that you can see where somewhere. Come here. There it is. This little break here, you want to have that open on this bigger side of the window. See how there's two sides, smaller window, bigger window. Just want to press this down again until you have that groove open. You can see that. Push one side down first, and kind of hold it with your thumb there around to this side. The screwdriver, and kind of pull it back, and that should set the whole thing in place. Move it around, make sure it stays in that groove, and then we're just gonna release the tension again. There you go. There we go. All right, that's in. Everything's in place. Before you slap everything back together, though, you want, like I said, you want to make sure that you take some either sandpaper or some Scotch-Brite. Kind of give that a scuff. And when you're doing it, make sure you're doing it in a downward motion towards that, so it's grabbing the belt better when you're doing it. So just like so. Flip her back together. This doesn't matter necessarily how it's sitting, as long as all the holes line up like that. Screws back in place, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the secondary. Okay guys, primary clutch is done. We're moving on to the secondary now. So you want to remove this set screw on this secondary here. Now it's just a T25, and this is what's setting your deflection. So you're just going to want to loosen that up or fully remove it. It's up to you. I'll usually just loosen it. And then these threads are reverse threads, so you're going to have to tighten it to loosen this up. Give me a second here. Come on. There we go. Not what I wanted. There we go. So loosening her up. Again, it's reverse threads. Show that. And I've always kind of just used this kind of as a pliers. Not really pliers, just using it as a wedge that you can spread this out a little bit and bring this off. Now, with that off, you're also going to want to take off this little shim. And then back to the specialty tools. Again, this is another specialty tool from SkiDoo. So what you're going to want to do is insert this inside of here, about yay deep. Oh, too far. Just about there until this is lined up with this here. And then you're going to want to tighten that up with, I always just end up using a crescent. You kind of just hold on to it. Back over here and tighten her up. Once it gets tight enough, this usually won't spin. So once it's tight, you want to make sure that it's tight, as a matter of fact. Okay, once that's in, you're going to insert your plastic over that, and then this other little cover on that. You're going to install your large wing nut. Don't drop it. All right, easy. Until that sets fully down. And then you're just going to start cranking on it till, so again what you're doing is you're just, same as that one, just trying to take out all the tension. Well, this is actually building tension for now until you get down to the very bottom. What you're doing is just relieving all the tension on the bolts that are connected to this helix here. So once that's about there, you're going to want to use T40 for these back bolts and some little bit of persuasion we call fire. That's just, we have a torch that we'll just use. Kind of just heat up the bolts. It's got a lot of Loctite in there from the factory. And just want to heat up the bolt a little bit. And we're just using a ratchet with a T40 on it. And to keep it in place with the other hand, make sure it's going the right way. You don't want to use a drill on these because I've seen them snap. It's not very fun to get out after that. And just go around all of them doing the same thing until you've loosened them all. Then you can remove them and slowly remove the tension from this, just backing it off. and it will bring the spring out. So we'll catch up with you once that is done. Okay, last one is off. See, everything's off. So now there's going to be all the tension is on this now. So just be careful when you're releasing it. You're going to want to go all the way back and slowly let this helix and spring up. Now with that done, cool. Helix comes off, as is the spring. So this is your secondary spring that we're not going to be using anymore. Put that off to the side. We're going to get out our new spring. Make sure you get this little white this little holder. If it doesn't come out, it'll be sitting inside of your stock helix. Open up your bag, get your secondary spring, place that like so. This one just don't matter how they're sitting. Some have little tabs in them and whatnot, but this one doesn't. So there's that. And then here is your new helix. So that is going to be sitting just how your last one was. That inside. Now, make sure that you're not putting this on the wrong part, that is. So you see your rollers inside of here. You want to make sure that those are good. Still roll freely. Okay, and you're going to be putting this in just like so. So that's going to be sitting in there. The rollers are going to be riding on these. So with that, we're going to go ahead and just again do the opposite of what you just did. Bring her down. Just like so. You can keep looking on the back of your sheave, and you can kind of just see where you're at as far as spacing in between your new helix and the back of this. So we'll do a little bit more, tighten up just a little bit more, and then we can send her the rest of the way with a bolt, just like that. You can see she's all the way up against the back of this, and it's lined up right. So one thing to look for, again, is an arrow here, and there is an arrow here. So with these, you just want to, obviously you can only place it in certain spots due to where these bolts are at. So you just want these two to be as close as you can together with that still lining up. So in my case, it'd be sitting like that. So one is facing about here, and the other's about here. So the next closest spot, if I were to turn it, would be here and here. So with these, it's obviously farther apart between the two arrows than it is between here and here. So we're going to go with it like that. Tighten her down, make sure you're using blue Loctite on all of these to secure it, and then torque it down. And again, we'll have the torque measurement. And then from there, once those are locked up and tight, we'll relieve the pressure, and then we'll slap her back together. Make sure you set your belt deflection, and we'll show you how to slap her back on. All right, so first things first, when you're putting it back together, after you shine up your sheaves on either side, you're gonna want to put your primary in first. Now, a thing to watch for, I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's almost shaped like it's a D inside of there. There's a notch right here somewhere. Right there. There it is. That notch has to line up with this notch. Otherwise, you're not setting it in straight, and it's not going to be, it's not going to go on, and that could potentially damage a lot of different things. So let's put this on. Make sure it twists like that. See how it's pretty flush up against this? So that's good. That's pretty good. You want that sitting in there just like so. And then from there, you're just going to put your bolt back on. Same one. Maybe. There it is. And you're just going to tighten this all the way down once it's there, and you want to torque it to 89 foot-pounds. So we'll bring out a torque wrench. So that's in place. I'm going to grab a torque wrench real quick. Have her set to 89. Now again, you just want to use that holder to keep her in place. And just torque her down. give it a couple clicks, make sure she's good. We'll take this off, and then we can slide our secondary in. Now this one, if you want to make sure on the other side, you got to relieve some of the the chain tension inside of the chain case, and you do so with a T25 again, and then you can kind of just see right here, inside of here, there is a little, you can pull this pin, and then right there, that is what's keeping your tension up. So just, I like to put just a ratchet in there, 1, 2, 3. It's usually enough to do it. It's just so that you can slide your jag shaft back in there and get all the everything lined up right. So you're gonna thread that punch back in until it stops. Slide it in. Kind of twist a little, twist and shake, kind of. There it is. Until you feel it. You can hear it actually engaging now. So you want to bring that in, kind of give it a little punch here and there. Don't be too rough with it, but you can always relieve a little more tension if needed. Just keep track of how many you've done. So you can hear it actually gripping. It's good to have the brake off though, so you know that it's moving. Just want to make sure that it's all the way in though. Sometimes it's better if you get a little grease. Oh, there it is. Okay, so as you can see, I don't know if you can see this or not, but she's all the way flush right here, flush here and here. So it's in place. So we'll get that with pieces, slap them back together, tighten up the chain tension, and then we can go from there. So I'm going to show you a little bit better on how this looks. So this is just going to sit in there in place like that. Again, if it's not straight, and if this bushing isn't inside of this tower, this little tower brace, then it's not going to line up like how it does with this. I'm going to move my hand right after I put this nut on. Shine a light in there and show you guys. Focus. You need to sit up against there like that, and then you're going to tighten up that nut. Now, for the other side, again, this 15 is going on there. Just going to take a little look. So, again, be careful with it. You don't want to lose anything. 15 the punch comes out. 15 millimeter bolt goes in. Tighten everything up. This one, I believe it was 23. We'll check and make sure. Make any corrections if need be, foot-pounds. And then tighten that up. And then when you're done, tighten up your chain tension. And then you'll throw your belt back on, throw your hood on, throw whatever you got to put on and make it run again. And yeah, we'll kind of show you guys a startup after this. Okay guys, so we got everything set, got our belt deflection set, everything's in place. So I want you to kind of see how our belt deflection is set. It's at barely below this ridge, this lower ridge here. You want it somewhere close to that, fairly similar. And to do so, it's fairly easy. You're going to take your tool. This is just a SkiDoo tool. It comes on your clutch cover. It's usually sitting somewhere down about here. Looks like that. You're going to pull this off, and to do it, you want to loosen up this. This is your little set screw. You want to loosen that up, and then you will twist either forward or backward, depending on whatever way you need to set it. Like I said, we've already got ours set. And that will open and close your sheaves as needed to get your belt where it needs to be set. So it's always good to kind of like move her back and forth and see after you've adjusted to see where it's actually sitting. You want to run it back and forth and then take a look at it, adjust as needed, and then once it's finally set, lock this down just like so. And then from there, well, we are good to, you want to make sure you've done your pre-operational. Actually, do not fire her up just yet. Do your pre-ops. Want to make sure it's got some good gas in it. We like to run 110 usually on our first tank. So from there, once you've done that, you're good to go ahead and fire her up. And you want to check for oil leaks, you want to check for fuel leaks, coolant leaks, any other of your clamps that may be not on correctly or anything that's off. Make sure she's really actually snow worthy. So we're going to go ahead and we'll fill her up real quick, and then we'll give you guys a little sound clip of what she sounds like. 5 to 6 pulls, depending on how much you're pulling it and pulling on her.